The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
It's coming.
All these voices. All these voices.
They're not yours. You had no right to them when you were alive, and you have no right to them when you're dead. That's what it sounded like. Good, so you know who I am. And then you know I'm not playing. You're going to let those women go. In Jesus' name, you're going to let those women go.
Is there a demon here watching us right now? Watching us right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
Thank you, James, and good evening. I hope everybody's having a good week. Thank you for joining us again, Misfits.
Tonight's episode is going to be interesting. On tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about a 300-year-old mermaid mummy that scientists are actually performing testing on to see if it's real or not. It's a fascinating subject, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Tonight's article comes from the New York Post, and the headline is "Scientists Working to Unravel Mystery of 300-Year-Old Mummified Mermaid with Human Face and Tail." It was written by Michael Havis, and it was originally published in The Sun. It was published March 3rd, 2022. A mummified mermaid said to grant immortality to whoever tastes its flesh will be probed by scientists in order to reveal its true nature. The mysterious 12-inch creature was allegedly caught in the Pacific Ocean off the Japanese island of Shikoku between 1736 and 1741 and is now kept in a temple in the city of Asakuchi. With a grimacing face, pointed teeth, 2 hands, and hair on its head and brow, it has an eerily human appearance, except for its fish-like lower half. Now, researchers from the Kurashiki University of Science and Arts have taken the mummy for CT scanning in a bid to unravel its secrets. Hiroshi Kenoshita of the Okayama Folklore Society, who came up with the project, said the bizarre creature could have religious significance. Japanese mermaids have a legend of immortality, he said. It is said that if you eat the flesh of a mermaid, you will never die. There is a legend in many parts of Japan that a woman accidentally ate the flesh of a mermaid and lived for 800 years. And on the screen right now, I'm putting an actual photograph of the alleged mermaid mummy. As you can see looking at this thing, it's got nails on it, it's got hair on the head, and it appears to have like a fish-like tail. I'll get into more description of it and breaking it down after the article is done, but I just want you to get a quick look at it. This Yao Bikuni legend is also preserved near the temple where the mermaid mummy was found. I heard that some people, believing in the legend, used to eat the scales of mermaid mummies. In the age of the Covey, a mermaid could be an ominous portent too, folklore suggests. There is also a legend that a mermaid predicted an infectious disease, said Hiroshi. A historic letter dated 1903, apparently penned by a former owner, was stored alongside the mummy and gives a story about its provenance. A mermaid was caught in a fish-catching net in the Sea of Kochi Prefecture, the letter states. The fisherman who caught it did not know it was a mermaid, but took it to Osaka and sold it as unusual fish. My ancestors bought it and kept it as a family treasure. It's unclear how or when the mummy came to the Injuin Temple in Asakuchi, but Chief Priest Kozen Kuida said it was put on display in a glass case some 40 years ago and is now kept in a fireproof safe. We have worshipped it, hoping that it would alleviate the COVID pandemic, even if only slightly, he told the Asahi Shimbun, a Japanese newspaper. Kinoshita, however, takes a more pragmatic view of the creature. Mummy mystery. He believes it was manufactured at some point during the Edo period, an era of Japanese history stretching from 1603 to 1867. Of course, I don't think it's a real mermaid, he said. I think this was made for export to Europe during the Edo period, or for spectacles in Japan. The legend of mermaids remains in Europe, China, and Japan all over the world. Therefore, I can imagine that people at that time were also very interested in it. He continued, I think it's made from living animals, and we would like to identify them by CT scans or DNA testing. It looks like a fish with scales on the lower body, and a primate with hands and face on the upper body. A similar specimen was exhibited by P.T. Barnum, whose life inspired the 2017 blockbuster, The Greatest Showman, at his American Museum in New York, before it burned down in 1865. This mummy, created from the torso and head of a monkey sewn onto the back half of a fish, was purportedly caught off the coast of Fiji and later purchased from Japanese sailors. In Japanese folklore, there exists a creature called the Ningyo, which is described as having a monkey's mouth with fish-like teeth and a body covered in golden scales. The scientists examining the mummy will be publishing their findings later this year. And that is the end of the article.
Thank you, James. So what is my opinion on the mummified mermaid that has a monkey's face? Teeth like a piranha kind of, and it has a body of a mermaid. It's about 12 inches long. It was found in Japan between 1736 and 1741. And the legend says that if you eat some of the fish, you are immortal. Supposedly somebody ate it and lived almost 800 years. So if you're immortal, then that's not 800 years. So that means that you don't live forever, you live a long time, so it's not forever. It's in Japan. Some of the names are so hard to say. They were saying that they're going to start doing DNA testing on it to see if it's real. Some people just think it's a monkey's head and a fish's body, and they just added the arms and the teeth and crap like that. It was made in Europe to, and it was made somewhere there, and it was just found. They said they found it in the Pacific Ocean in the mid 1700s. So they tried to copy this in Barnum and Bailey in the 1800s with the fish person. It looked exactly the same, and I guess it was a fraud. That's what I was reading. I think in 1865, 45. I don't know, one of those years. I don't want to be. I'm not James. I'm not precise like him on everything. So go check it out. It looks, we'll find out because they're doing tests. And it wasn't just out of nowhere. It was out of the New York Post. It was originally done by the Sun. But the New York Post is the one who's talking about it. So it's not like, some off third party, crypto magazine. And there's nothing wrong with them. It's just, you know what I mean? It's the New York Post. And some people don't like them either. But, what I'm saying is that they're talking about this because they're going to be doing DNA sampling in Japan over this. Do I believe it exists? Because there's supposed to be a legend with a monkey's face in a fish's body that was, I think, started from before the 1700s. I think it was hundreds of years before that. So it matches up. Do I believe that this is real? Probably not. Probably faked. We'll find out. They're going to do a DNA test soon. We'll find out. Probably not, but I believe there is mermaids, but they're not like that. But you never know. You never know if it's a mermaid or some kind of hybrid, or it was some kind of science. Well, 1700s it wouldn't be. How do you know it wasn't just a mutation? Could be an alien project. You never know, guys. We all have our opinions on that. Were the aliens doing a lot? Because if you look at some of the stuff back in the early Roman days and even Egyptian days, there's a lot of half men, half minotaur, half beast, half all kinds of shit, like the griffin and all that stuff, half lion, half hawk, eagle, all kinds of cool stuff back then. So you never know, dude. It might have been alien experiments. I'm just giving different opinions. I don't know what you guys think. I'm going to say in a minute, leave your comments and let us know what you think. We always want to hear that. Tell us what you think about this. Is it just another Barnum and Bailey show thing? And that's what I'm thinking of. But I'm not going to say 100% because there is a legend about it. But somebody could have made it just to look like that to fulfill the legend. So we know how people are, especially back in those times, everybody was trying to make money. So we all know that's the main thing in most people's mind is making money or making something or becoming famous off of it. Because I found the mermaid or whatever it is. It's a weird looking creature. It doesn't look like a mermaid because most people think mermaids are half men, half human. And I don't. I think that they might be aquatic, kind of like a human being, a humanoid-ish. But a lot of people think if dinosaurs would have survived, they would have been more like us, maybe taller, but they would have evolved like us. They would have been more featured like walking on twos instead of fours. They would have evolved from there. Even maybe some of these fish did. Maybe we don't know where Atlantis is. Maybe this is the one of our ancestors went into the ocean and we just don't see them. There's people who think that already. They think that mermaids already live there. There's legends about mermaids. You know, we have Aquaman and from DC and Nemo from Marvel. So Nimrod, sorry, not Nimrod. I think that's his name. God, I forget what it is. Submariner. That's what I'll call him because that's easier. That's their version of him in comic books is from Atlantis. You know, you got the Little Mermaid. You know, all the there's so many movies. The Mermaid from Tom Hanks. I don't know if you guys saw that with Daryl Hannah. That was a good one. There's even horror movies about Little Mermaids. There's there's one I can't remember what it was. I think it's the Guinea Pig series. That's a movie it's really if you're not into extreme horror, and I don't want to go in this because we're on this show, it's not for you. Because there's a lot of crazy stuff. It's about a mermaid that gets caught, and they do all kinds of, doing experiments, and they show it, because it's a horror movie. That movie, there's all kinds of stuff about mermaids, Little Mermaids, and I don't even know why I got into that, because it's a PG show, but at least you know where I come from. I watch some crazy stuff, guys. I'm more of a realist. I like crazy things. I love horror movies. This is why I love all this stuff. Like I said, I don't think this is real, but I believe that mermaids are real. I believe there's something different than what we think they're merfolk more like. And they are just probably higher evolved than us. They just don't care about us. We see them once in a while, but we're nothing. I think some things are meant not to talk about. I don't think we're the only ones here. I think that it isn't just aliens. I think there's other things here. And then when you see something come out of nowhere, I think it might be from another dimension. Everybody thinks already, oh, demons and angels, here we go. Again, believe in whatever you want, man. That's a religious thing, and that's not any religion. My personal opinion is, if you're going to do this stuff, remember, you're going to see stuff and hear and see things you never thought of and don't even know what they are. So, especially with crypto, we don't even know what some of these things are. Like, are they from another dimension? Are they from the ocean? Or, especially with mermaids, and then you have Bigfoot and all these other creatures like the Jersey Devil and all that stuff. But I just want to know what you guys think. Always comment. We always want to hear what you guys have to say. We love hearing from you guys. We love our fans more than you ever know. I think James put us on this I forget how to say the name. He'll tell you how to do it. But you can watch all our channel. It's like an internet TV thing. You go on and you can see us and you'll see our old shows and you can watch. It's like our own 24-hour channel. He'll tell you where to go. It's pretty cool. It has all our shows. You could see us now because, like I said, the last couple months we've been doing it where you could see us. People are tripping out saying, what happened to old boy? Why is it, I'm just getting older. I like the beard. My wife loves it, and now it's legal in California. You can wear a beard as long as you keep it kept. And I've been using all that damn beard stuff. And now you guys get to actually see the old boy and James Hershey. Just two old bearded men. One from the desert and one from the mountains. And who would ever thought that we would be doing this kind of show? So I think we're going on, in Christmas time, it's going to be 6 years since we've been doing staring into the abyss. That's crazy because we started almost 6 years ago doing the show, a little over 6 ago. But yeah, this December, the end of December, January is going to be 6 years we've been doing the show. And I think on Parax is going to be 5 in July, I think. I think it's 5. 5 years. Yeah, I think it is. So I hope you guys enjoyed how we've been doing for the last couple years, 6 years. Been doing this show, and it's got bigger than it's ever been, and it's gonna get bigger, and we'll probably be here forever. You'll see our shows even when we're dead and gone on YouTube, on any whatever Sloop Tube, Space Tube. You don't know, whatever they got in those times, 2,000 years from now. You'll be watching us and saying, what the hell has he got all of the beard, and why has James got his beard? That's just how we are, man. And I'm starting to like it. At first, it took me a while. It itched real bad, but, I had to do a lot of stuff to it. And do that oil and all that crap to keep this stuff is expensive. But, hey, it's worth it. The wife, happy life, happy wife. Remember that, guys. So that's what I think. I think that people, mermen, women, they existed. I think they still might. There's a lot of stuff coming out. I know they had that show on Discovery, but then come to find out it wasn't even real. They were showing about mermaids years ago, and they made a couple seasons out of it. I remember that. And then come to find out it was all fake. But then there's some stuff coming out that they're showing. You never know. CGI is so good now. You don't know anymore. Like, are they real? What do they really look like? We've done a show before on Little Mermaids a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. Go check it out. It's in the on the channel on James Hersey's YouTube page. Subscribe and you can see what he's talking about and what I'm talking about. And we did a show about mermaids. It was pretty good. I've done a show about almost everything. This is just something they found that I've seen this years ago about this. They thought back, I think it was in a book in the 80s or 90s. I read it when I was a kid about what we're talking about right now in Japan. And, I always thought it was kind of weird looking. I don't know, man. There's stuff that was there. Like, people still live. I still live the old way, guys. I believe in the old way. That's me. I believe that me and James were in different lives. We did this before. Kind of like the Winchester brothers. We were meant to do this. We were meant to find monsters and fight and find ghosts and battle them. And that was our life. That was our calling. I've always wanted to do this. And the funny thing is, I used to talk to a friend that we used to talk about doing a show, and we're doing it now. Me and James are, but me and my friend used to talk about it for 10, 15 years, and I finally got to do it. I got to do what I love. And I know you guys love the show because there's people still watching. I don't care if there's 1 or 20 million. I love doing the show for you guys. I love you guys. I love the responses we get. You're always going to get criticism, and somebody thinks they know everything. Somebody thinks they're an expert because they read something online, or, like I said, you might be experienced experts. No one's an expert. There's always something new you're going to find out. Experience is different. We've talked about this. There's people who just think they know everything, and that's just something you can't change. You can't even argue with people that. I mean, that's what the problem is with the society altogether. There's too many people who really don't know what they're talking about, and the unfortunate thing is they're running some of the countries here, and they have power, and I don't know how they did. It's life. Well, I don't want to get into politics. We don't need to get there, but I'm just showing you an example, and it's just all together. There's just people who just don't get it, and they think they do. They think they know better than everybody. They've seen something. Or, like I told people, there's a lot of people who are just afraid of it and just don't want to know it's there. They know there's stuff going on. They just don't want to know. They think just ignoring it's going to keep it away. And that works for a lot of people. If that's the way you want to live in a box, that's your business. I'm not saying to believe everything you hear, every conspiracy. The conspiracy thing's getting out of control with everything. I'm sorry, I don't believe half of the stuff. Unless you actually see it. I don't care if it's in paperwork folder. Unless you actually see it, don't always believe everything. And even with us, don't 100%. We're not saying we're fake or anything. I'm just saying that we don't know if this is 100% true. We're just going by what we think and what we read and what we studied and what we've investigated. It's up to you. We're not forcing anybody to believe what we do. I hope not, because that's just how we are. We always have difference of opinions. Me and James have different beliefs, different religions, but we get along pretty well. The funny thing is, me and him are same name, James. That's why I go old boy, so it's easier that way. But we're pretty similar. Even though he grew up in Virginia and California, we're very similar. It's so weird. But we're just opposite on beliefs. And it doesn't matter. I don't care. It's his business and my business, and we have a good life. We have a good friendship. We've been friends for almost 7, 8 years now, and He's one of my best friends. He's like a brother. I don't consider him a friend. I consider him family. So I talk to him almost every day. That's just how it is. That's how you want a show to be. You don't want somebody not talking. You guys talk just about that. Bye, guy. I'll talk to you next show. That's not what happens. We're a family or unit. Even with our people in our groups, we're family organized, and we're like a big giant family. Half of us are really related because it's my wife and a couple of my friends, and a couple people, that I known and he's known and grown up with, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like I said, do I think this thing's real? It's probably not, and we're gonna find out it's not real, and it's another hoax, and that's what I think too. But like I said, I don't think mermaids are hoax. I think those are real. I think those are real. I believe it. We talked about it in our other show. They're always interesting to me, yo. Half human, half fish. Wait a minute, though. Whales are mammals. How do we know we're not? No one's ever thought, how do we know they're not mammals? Why does everybody think it's a fish? Whales are not. Dolphins, I think they're a fish. Whales are not, though. Like humpbacks and stuff like that, and sperm whales. What else is there? The orca whales, the killer whale. Those are mammals. So how do we know they're even fish and they're not mammals? Just another version. It just they can swim in the water. That's what they evolved to. That's a theory that no one's probably ever thought about. Are they fish? Are they mammals? Just like a whale. We don't know. Check it out, guys. What do you think about my theory on that? I was just thinking that. Just can't see. This is what things will just. I'll get an idea and then I'll throw it out there, dude. And that's just, I don't know. My mind works like that. I was just thinking and I just said mammals. Wait a minute. Maybe it might be a mammal and a human. Never know. Tell me what you guys think. There you go, James. That's my opinion. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you, brother. Okay, let's start this off by answering a few questions. Old boy was wondering if a dolphin was a fish or a mammal. A dolphin is a mammal. He was also wondering if this mermaid mummy creature, if it was actually real, would it be a fish or would it be a mammal? Well, let's tackle that question first, because that's an interesting question. We didn't discuss this beforehand, by the way. I just heard what he said and it interested me. I would say that if it was real, it would have to be not necessarily a fish, but it would have to be cold-blooded. Mammals are warm-blooded. And with being warm-blooded and being in the water all the time, you have a couple things that every single aquatic mammal has. The first and most important of these is blubber. Without blubber, a mammal will not survive in the ocean. It is too cold. So when you look at whales, you look at like seals and walruses and those kind of things, they all have a thick layer of insulating fat underneath the skin, which is called blubber. That helps all marine mammals to survive. Without it, they can't survive. If you remember when I did the article, I showed a photograph of this supposed mermaid mummy in it, like a little coffin looking thing. One thing you'll notice about that is it does not have a bunch of fat on it. It doesn't have a layer of blubber. There is no bulging out of any area of its skin that would tell you that it has blubber on it. So just that alone would tell me that this cannot be a mammal, because if it was a mammal, it would be warm-blooded. If it's warm-blooded, it has to have blubber to survive. So that already eliminates being a mammal. So it would have to be a cold-blooded animal. Also, another thing that all marine mammals have is hair. And I'm not talking about just hair on the head, because this thing had hair on the head. But they all have hair on the body as well. Some of it is small, fine hair. Some of it is a thick coat of hair. This also helps to keep them warm. As you notice on this mermaid mummy, there was not a ton of hair. There was hair on the head, but there wasn't hair anywhere else. So that also would lead me to believe that this would have to be a cold-blooded animal. So given the two choices of mammal or fish, fish would be the answer to that question. Because, once again, no blubber, no complete body hair. It would be impossible for that thing to stay alive in the ocean, in that cold water all the time, if it was a mammal. So it can't be a mammal. So that's that question over and done with. As far as, do I think that this thing is actually real? Or do I think that it is a hoax? I think it's a hoax, and I'll tell you why. I don't think it's a hoax as anybody did modern day. I think it's something that they've had for a long, long time, and they believe that it was a mermaid mummy. But I think that it was constructed in the beginning, whenever it was made. It wasn't something that was naturally occurring in the ocean. The reason I think that is if you look at the photograph, it is fairly obvious that that is a monkey's head. I mean, it looks exactly like a monkey's head. It has the same fangs as the monkey would have. It has the same hair on top of the head that a monkey would have. A monkey would have hair on the rest of its body as well. That's the only thing that kind of throws me a little bit. But I think that the features on that head are similar enough to a monkey to pretty definitively say that there's a damn good chance that that's a monkey. The bottom half is some sort of fish-like thing. I'm not going to necessarily say it is a fish completely. It might not be real at all. It might be completely constructed out of whatever materials they used. If you look at the middle of the body, one thing I noticed about the middle of the body was it's way too smooth. You go from the upper body to the lower body, which looks like a fish, and the transition is way too smooth. There aren't the standard wrinkles or bulgy spots or anything that would suggest that this was a natural creature. Instead, what it looks like is basically like somebody, just like the gentleman said, they took a monkey and a fish and sewed them together. And then they went over the whole thing with a layer of, almost looks like, if you were doing it in modern day terms, like it would be Bondo or fondant, something like that, some kind of clay or model making material that hardens, that they were able to smooth out. Now, I doubt it's clay because it wouldn't have lasted this long intact like that unless it had been fired, but maybe it was. But if it was fired, they wouldn't be able to keep the hair on it because the hair would burn. So it was some sort of material that they used to put it all together. Once again, if it was made in modern day, I would say it was some sort of plastic or acrylic or some sort of rubber or something like that that they kind of brushed on and it dried to give that appearance that it was one whole body instead of two bodies sewn together. You got to do something to cover up the threads when you sew something together. And the smoothness of that transition tells me that beyond a doubt, this is not a natural creature. Because even if it was something that was fairly smooth, like even a snake or something like that, when you taxidermy a snake, the skin doesn't stay completely smooth. You have wrinkles in it. You have imperfections that you can look at and say, that's actual skin. Because see how it folds. This didn't have that. This is a very smooth transition all the way down. So that tells me that this is something that was put together, not something that is real. Also, if you look at the nails on this thing, they almost look like a cross between claws and a more human-looking nail. They're not exactly human, but they're not exactly like an animal's claws either. And if you look at the hands of some of the small monkeys, like the rhesus monkeys, and even up to like orangutans and chimpanzees and stuff, They don't have long, sharp claws like a cat or something like that would have, or some other animal. Their fingernails are more like fingernails. Now, yes, they do grow long and they do get sharp, but they're not the same, if that makes sense. They're not the same as a normal animal's fingernails are. They're not exactly human fingernails. They're stronger than that, but they're not exactly animal either. Now, if you look at the fingernails on this creature, it looks like a monkey's fingernails as well. That's another thing that's making me say that I think that this is something that was kind of hodgepodge together. Now, they mentioned P.T. Barnum in this article, and it's interesting that this article brings up his museum that burnt and all that kind of stuff, because we literally just did the Freak Show where we talked about the different freak shows that toured the country and a lot of the famous performers in those freak shows. And we talked about Barnum's museum and how it burned down and how one of the ladies almost died. There was one of the giants and she couldn't get out, and her people helped her out. And it's just interesting to me that they brought that up, considering we literally just did a show about it. And that wasn't planned, just so the audience knows. That's not something that I looked at and said, hey, this would be good to piggyback off that show, because they're talking about freak show stuff here too. This was something completely different. And also, so everybody knows, this is not off of some hokey website or anything like that. This is 100% legit. This is the New York Post. There's also articles, if you go on a search engine and look, in a bunch of different science magazines, because scientists are actually testing this. They're going to do DNA sampling, and they're going to do CT scans of the tissue from this thing. And they're going to try to determine, first through CT scans, if they can see where the junctions are and see if it is different things kind of sewed together. You'll be able to tell that on a CT scan. It's like an X-ray, but better. So you're going to be able to get a look inside this thing and see what you're dealing with. And also through DNA sampling, they'll be able to tell you exactly what kind of animals were used to create this thing. Or if you look at the flip side, if you're one of those people that looks at this thing and believes it's a real mermaid mummy, then you'll have definitive DNA evidence that mermaids do exist, if that's the case. If this thing's a mermaid, it's not a standard mermaid like we've all grown up hearing about, because this thing is tiny. It is tiny and it is ugly. And if you remember the legends of mermaids, they used to climb up out of the water on rocks and stuff, and they would sing and call out to the sailors. And the sailors would kind of get in a trance and fall in love with these things and dive into the ocean to be with them and end up drowning. The mermaids would jump in, grab them, and drag them down underneath the water and drown them, because the mermaids are dicks. But this thing, if you look at it, it can't be a mermaid, because it doesn't fit the legends of mermaids. First of all, it's tiny as hell. It's so little. It's not even like close to the size of a midget. So why would you think that this could be something that a sailor would fall in love with? It's not the size of a human. It doesn't in any way resemble a person at all. It looks like a monkey and a fish. So that would not make you fall in love with it. But I'm pretty sure none of you ever look at a monkey and think, hubba hubba, I got to get me some of that. So I don't think that it matches the lore of mermaids at all, because nobody's fallen in love with that thing. There's no way that thing's sitting on a rock singing to you and you're like, man, what a beauty. I got to jump in the water and spend my life with this thing. No chance in hell that's happening. Secondly, I think a lot of people have a misconception about the lore of mermaids anyway. Because remember, the legends state that these things would come up out of the water and sing. And men would fall in love with them and jump in the water after them. Remember what I just said earlier about all mammals that are in the ocean. They have to have a layer of blubber to survive. And they have to have hair to survive. So the Ariel Little Mermaid version of a mermaid could not have been the reality. The reality would be, if mermaids were a real creature, that they would be covered in blubber, they'd be fat, and they'd be hairy as all hell. They'd look like a fat-ass Sasquatch, basically, in the water. Now, the bottom half of them would be fish, and the top half would be human. But the human half would be covered in fur. The bottom half wouldn't have to be covered in fur, because the bottom half would be fish, and fish are cold-blooded. And like all cold-blooded animals, fish, sharks, crabs, those kind of things, they do not need to keep their internal body temperature at 98.7 degrees or 98.4 or whatever. They can kind of have an internal body temperature that's the same temperature as the water because they're cold-blooded, so it doesn't matter. It won't send their system into shock and shut it down like it does ours. So the bottom half of the actual storied mermaids that we're all familiar with would not have to be covered in blubber or covered in fur. So basically a mermaid would have blubber in all the parts that you don't want to have blubber, and the parts that wouldn't be so bad to have blubber, they wouldn't have no blubber. So they wouldn't have a big old booty. They would have a fishtail. They would have a fat upper body covered in fur, and they probably wouldn't be all that appealing, to be honest with you. So to me, that would state that it couldn't have been beauty that caused these sailors to jump off the ship. Now, maybe they thought it was beauty, but if you think about this, even in modern times, it takes a long time to cross the ocean. When you go out on a boat, you're going out for months at a time. And think about these sailors back in those days. You had, most of them were fishermen, or they were people that were traveling, like with military and stuff like that, all the way across the ocean to go somewhere else. So you're spending months and months and months and months on board that ship, and most of the time with no women. Because unless it's a passenger ship, why would there be women with you? You're either a military vessel or you're a vessel that is out fishing. And both of those things at that time, women weren't involved in. So it would be all men on the vessel. And you'd be out there for a long time, sometimes a year at a time. So think about that. You're out there on the ocean with nothing but smelly guys. No showers, so you stink. I mean, you're just smelly. And no women around. It gets pretty lonely. So if you had something come up, even if it was a little bit chunky, and even if it was a little bit hairy, if it looked like a woman, the top half sticking out of the water, because remember, you're not seeing the bottom half that's a fish most times because it's in the water. Because out in the middle of the ocean, you're not going to have rocks just sticking up that you can just climb up on. Sometimes they would, but most of the time it was just water, and they would come up probably their shoulders and head above the water and not a whole lot more. So you see that, you think it's a woman. It starts calling out to you, asking you to come to it, to join it. Starts singing a very beautiful song. So you hear a woman's voice, you see a woman's top half, and like I said, even if it's a little bit chunky and even if it's a little bit hairy, you ain't seen a woman in a long time. So you're awful lonely. Now, if you doubt that men would fall for that, even after being out on sea for months, all you have to do is go to any bar. Go to any bar in the country, probably in the world, and just hang out. Don't drink, because you need to be sober so you can see what's happening. And just hang out and look. Watch the progression of the men in that bar. In the beginning of the night, they're all cocky. They're hitting on every woman. They're like, hey, how you doing, baby? You know what I mean? They got standards, though. They're not going to take home the grenade. But as night goes on, time gets shorter. And as it gets towards the end of the night, what you're going to see is every man in that bar that wants to go home with somebody is going to drop their standards a great deal. And they're going to settle for anybody in that bar that's a woman. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're 600 pounds. It doesn't matter if they're covered in hair. It doesn't matter if they've got crooked teeth. None of that matters anymore. Because they're drunk, it's near the end of the night, and they're going home with somebody. Because otherwise they're going home alone. So all of a sudden, a 3 or a 4 turns into an 8. Because you don't want to go home alone. So if you doubt that men that are out alone on ships for months at a time, sometimes a year at a time or more, if they saw a woman in the water calling out to them, that they wouldn't be interested, then you don't know men. You don't know men at all. Also, you have the chivalry thing. Back in those times, women were viewed a lot differently. And a lot of people look down on that and say that women weren't treated as equals and women were second-class citizens and all that kind of stuff. Well, in some ways, women weren't treated equally because they didn't have the right to vote. They didn't have the right to own property. There's a lot of things that women during that time period were not able to do that men were. But women were also put on a pedestal during those times. And they were viewed as, whether, you think it's right or wrong doesn't really matter to me. I'm just looking at the history of it. But they were viewed as people that needed help. That you would never allow a woman to struggle and suffer. You would be there to help her if you could. It was a more chivalrous time to where men would open doors for women. Men would treat women with respect. At least in public. Now, if you're in private and it's your woman, I'm sure it was a lot different. Because I think that's one thing that hasn't changed a whole bunch over the years, is that every couple is going to fight. Now, I think probably back in those times, there wasn't as much fighting. And I'll tell you why I say this, and this might not be a popular thing to say, but once again, not condoning it, not saying it's a good thing. I'm just stating fact. Back then, it wasn't like it is now, to where if a man slapped his wife around, he's going to prison. Nowadays, women know that most men aren't going to hit you because we don't want to go to jail. And we were just raised that wasn't the right thing to do anyway. Back then, you had a lot more of that going on. And if a woman was to call the cops aren't going to do anything. So I would guess that since women knew that if they got too lippy, their man would knock them around, most likely women didn't get all that lippy back then. They probably weren't like they were now, where they just constantly run their mouth and scream and holler and act crazy. I would be willing to bet that didn't happen a whole lot back then. Because if it did, then the man would just slap them around and they'd shut up. Once again, I am not condoning that behavior. Just want to make sure I know that, because I know you guys are down in the comments right now typing, "You sexist piece of crap." I get it. I'm not saying it's right. I've never laid my hands on a woman in my life, and I never will. It's not the right thing to do. Do not do it. But what I'm saying is, back then, people thought a little bit differently. So since you didn't have women complaining and griping at you so much, there probably wasn't as much fighting as there was now, but I'm sure there still was some. That was my point of the whole thing. So anyway, let's get off that whole subject. My point is that men will absolutely go for a chunky, hairy mermaid if they're out on a boat for a long period of time. Guaranteed. So I don't see where that part of the legend really is so unbelievable. But the interesting thing, getting back to what I was saying before that sidetrack that I took, the interesting thing about it is an actual mermaid, since it is half fish and half human, is it a mammal or is it cold-blooded? Warm-blooded or cold-blooded? What's the solution there? The lower half of its body is a fish body. So that would be a cold-blooded animal. The upper half is human. That's warm-blooded. because that's a mammal. Is it half and half? Do you have half warm-blooded, half cold-blooded? Or is the entire thing warm-blooded? Or more likely, if it was a real creature, I would probably guess that the entire creature is cold-blooded, even though the upper half looks like a human. Because look at the environment it's in. The majority of creatures in the ocean are cold-blooded. So if you just go with the odds, most likely you're going to be dealing with a cold-blooded creature in a mermaid. So if that's the case, then they wouldn't have to have the blubber, and they wouldn't have to have the hair. So then that changes the whole scenario that I just went through. So if an actual mermaid was a mammal, was warm-blooded, it would have to have blubber and hair, so it wouldn't be very appealing. But if it was cold-blooded, the whole thing, then it could be slender, it could look beautiful, and it wouldn't have to have hair all over its body. It could just have hair on its head to attract men. That more closely fits the lore. So the reason I went into both of those scenarios is because I'm interested to know down in the comment section when this show hits YouTube. What do you guys think? Do you think that mermaids, if they were real, do you think that they were warm-blooded or do you think that they were cold-blooded? Because that's going to change the appearance. If they were cold-blooded, then they could look like Ariel. They could be the idea of mermaid that we've all grown up with. If they were warm-blooded, they couldn't be. They'd have to look more like a manatee or something, like a big walrus-looking creature. That's what a mermaid would have to look like. It would have a fish tail, but the upper body would be fat and hairy. So what do y'all think? Do you think that the legends and the lore got it wrong and that they're actually more like a walrus? Or do you think that the legends and lore got it right and that they are cold-blooded? Therefore, they can be slender and beautiful. And if you don't believe that mermaids exist at all, that's fine. I'm not telling you have to believe it. But for the purposes of this question, kind of suspend disbelief and just operate under the assumption that mermaids are real. That way you can kind of make a judgment call on it and see what you think. Might not be interesting to you, but I think it's pretty interesting. I like stuff like that. Getting the wheels turning in your brain and making you think a little bit. So, to sum up this long, multifaceted ramble, I believe that this mermaid mummy creature thing is most likely a hoax. I would say almost definitely a hoax. I'm not going to say 100% because you never know. But we'll know for sure soon because they're going to release the results at the end of the year. So once they release the results at the end of the year, maybe we'll do a follow-up show to where we can see what the results were. Or maybe I'll just do an episode of Paranormal News on it or something because it's probably not going to be enough for a full-hour show. So we'll know for sure at the end of the year. But most likely, I believe that it is a hoax. I think that it's just like that thing that Barnum was touring around with, where it's just something that was made. I don't think it's real because it's too little. It doesn't match what we know of as a mermaid. The only way it could be possible if it was a child mermaid. That's an option. If it's a child mermaid, then the size of it would make more sense. But if it's a child mermaid, it looks awful old to be a child. I don't mean like because it's all mummified. I mean that its teeth are fully grown in, its nails are grown in. It looks like an older thing. But it could be. If it is real, there is potential that it is a child, and that's why it's so small. Let me know down in the comment section what you guys think about that too, because that is a good point. That would explain its size. The hair on the head throws me though. The hair on the head is so fine and so stringy looking. I mean, it looks exactly like a monkey's hair because it's coarse. It's not like human hair is softer and silkier and it has more body to it. That almost looks like this. Okay, it looks like a beard or like body hair. It doesn't look like hair on your head. There's a difference in the texture and the volume and the consistency of hair on your head and facial hair and pubic hair and body hair and that kind of stuff. There's a difference. And this to me does not look like normal hair that would be on something's head. It looks like matted fur, really, is what it looks like, which would be a monkey again. So that's my ruling on it. That's what I believe, is that this thing is something that was created. The upper half is definitely a mummy. That's my ruling on it. I believe that this is something that was definitely created, and the upper half is absolutely a monkey. There's no doubt in my mind about that it is a monkey. Now, the lower half, that's a toss-up. It looks like the tail of a fish, like what a mermaid tail would look like. But if you look at fish, no fish have tails that look like that. Fish tails are different. The back fins may look like that, but it's a different structure to the tail than what this has. This thing's tail kind of goes down and curves, almost like an L shape almost, or like a J. And that's not what a fishtail does. A fishtail is straight, and this is not straight. So I don't know if this is actually a fish tail that they kind of sewed together. I think what they did was they took the upper half of a monkey and they constructed a tail structure out of something else and put on it. It's completely artificial. And I think it's probably even hollow inside, and what they might even find on the CT scan is a monkey inside a constructed tail. That's what I'm thinking it might be. Is the tail's completely fake. It's not real at all. What you have there is a monkey, and they put some sort of tail structure that they built onto it and covered it all in something to make it smooth and make it look like it's one creature. That's my ruling. That's what I think. Let me know down in the comments section when this hits YouTube what you guys think. Do you think that it's a actual mermaid mummy? Do you think if it is that it's a child or just some different species of mermaid that's smaller? And if you think that it is a fake, like I do, then let me know that as well. As always, it's up to you guys to make up your own minds. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm just here to give you the information. So with that being said, I'm going to throw back over to Old Boy so he can give his shout outs and everything, and then we will wrap up. So Old Boy, go ahead, brother.
And I hope everybody enjoyed this week's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed us on Parax Radio at 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern on Sunday nights. The Best Of show on Tuesday nights, 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern on Parax Radio. You also can listen to us on James Hershey's YouTube page. All the YouTube shows on there. You subscribe, you can listen to all the new shows and all the old shows, and even the paranormal news he does. You can check us out on Tells the Abyss. You can see all the stuff we've done on our investigations. You can check that out. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember, leave your comments. Always let us know what you think. We also have merchandise. We'll tell you where to go. He'll send you the link. I hope you guys have a good night. Misfit, Sugar Lady, Monster Lovers, Demon Hunters, I love you, and blessed be. And have a great night. I love you. Yeah.
Thank you, brother. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for hanging out with us once again. We greatly appreciate it. Now for all the shameless plugs and links and all that kind of stuff. First of all, I want to say that we now have a channel on Stream TV. The channel name is Abyss Broadcast, and inside that's like the actual name of the entire thing, and then inside that there's a channel that is called Abyss Broadcasting. So it's on Stream TV. To get to it, you'll go to streamtv.com. It's STRIMM TV.com /Abyss Broadcast /Abyss Broadcasting. That's the link. I'll put it down in the description box when this hits YouTube. I'll put the link there where you can just click on it or copy paste it, however it works out. But there we have our own channel on Stream TV now. Stream TV is like a new TV streaming service thing. And it plays 24 hours a day, episodes of Staring into the Abyss and episodes of Tales from the Abyss. So if you're into the show, both of them, you can go there and watch that and check it out. I'm not exactly sure how all that stuff works. All I know is right now it's free. All you have to do is go to it and you can watch it. You don't have to pay anything, so that's awesome. So go check it out and see what you think. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. On the YouTube channel is every single episode of Staring into the Abyss, every single episode of Tales from the Abyss, every single episode of Paranormal News, and then there's other assorted videos that we've made and put up there. There's well over like 500 to 1,000 videos on that channel, so there's a lot of content there to watch. It's 100% free. Go there, check it out, subscribe, like the videos, hit the little notification bell thingy so that you know when I've posted. If you're already there, if you're watching this on YouTube and not listening on the radio, hi, how you doing? I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in every week. There's a lot of you that are always, every week you're there, and that's awesome. If you're not subscribed already and you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. It helps out a lot. And hit the like button and the little bell thingy. Appreciate it. Love you guys, and I'm glad that you're here watching, and I hope you're enjoying the show. If you're on the radio, I gave you the link. It's youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. Please go there and subscribe and check out the channel. You can go and you can watch all of the old shows. If there's one that you missed, you can go catch it there. If there's one that you really enjoyed and you want to see again, they're there for you. Like I said, 100% free. I even made playlists of each show. So if you go to the channel and you go to the playlist tab, there's a Staring into the Abyss playlist that has every episode of Staring in it. There's a Tales from the Abyss playlist that has every episode of Tales from the Abyss in it. So it's all there for you. Also on the YouTube channel, in the description box of every single video, is the link to the merchandise store. So if you want to get some merch, if you're into Staring or Tales, and you want to support us and buy some merch to kind of show your colors there, that's all there. It's a decent price. I've lowered the prices substantially from what the suggested prices are. So it's just over what it costs us to make it, basically. We're not making really any money off the merchandise store. I just put it up there because I had multiple people ask if we had merch and how they could get some. So now it's there for you if you want to check it out. The quality is really good, and there's a lot of different stuff, man. There's t-shirts, there's hoodies, there's leggings, there's posters, there's pillows, there's bumper stickers, there's coffee mugs, tons of stuff. We have merch that has the Staring logo on it. We have merch that has the Tales logo on it. And we also have merch that has all kinds of different horror-themed stuff on it. So if you're somebody that's into the paranormal or you're into horror, go ahead and check out the site and see if there's anything there you like. Like I said, it's cheap and it is good quality, and it's a great way to support us because that helps. Even though we're not making much off of it, each piece we sell, we get a couple cents or something. That does help to support us. So if you want to check it out, go ahead. The link will be there in the description box. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for watching. We appreciate you. We love you. And we will catch you on the next one. Until we speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.